These are the answers to our practice quiz number 5. So the first part are our throwback questions, the most missed questions from our fourth quiz that we had. So number 1 was missed a lot. To showboat his epic dancing skills at prom, the other students stepped aside as Ben Van Dusen, or the chosen one, strutted his way into the center of the dance floor. Well, I think what got most of us is we could see this opening infinitive, which is to showboat his dancing skills, and it was all going to Ben. And so we immediately eliminated the A choice. We said, well, this one's referring to Ben, this one's referring to Ben, and then this one says for him, which also is fine to use. So we realized that B, C, and D are all working. So, like, what's the difference between them? Well, when I make it a positive with the word or, I have to make sure I have commas on both sides. So I have to say Ben or the chosen one, comma. So I have to include both commas, and that's what made C right. All right, so be careful. That one's going to come back and get us again, or at least something similar to that. Number 2, Matt advised for his friends definitely to take advanced grammar in order to improve their SAT scores, even though the man who teaches it is the spawn of Satan. Well, there are two things happening in this one. And so I try to find something I'm very confident with, which is the even though. I know any form of though should take a comma. So it's going to eliminate both the A and the C choice. I know it's going to be comma even though. So it's A, it's either B or D. And I realize I can't split this infinitive to definitely take. So therefore it's going to be B. On number 3, Sabrina decided to return her designer prom dress for one on Kmart Blue Light Special, for she values a good bargain and the vintage senior citizen look, apparently. Well, this is tricky. And so remember, there are a lot of adverbs don't take commas. Most adverbs don't take commas. There's just a handful that do. And they're the ones that aren't really describing a verb. Like they're not just saying like quickly or happily or slowly or pathetically. Like what it's doing is it's describing the whole sentence. So words like ironic, lucky or unlucky or apparent or clear, those are all going to take a comma. So clearly, apparently, that sort of thing. So I know there's going to be a comma with the word apparently. So it's either going to be A or C. And I definitely don't want to put a comma after bargain. It's not like a compound sentence. So therefore, A is my choice. Number 4, Joel agreed to wear Mr. Doherty's senior old high school wrestling singlet, provided that Mr. Doherty wash it at least 3 times in 160 degrees scalding water with bleach. This is a tough one for some reason. And so remember, the only adverb clauses that get commas at the end of the sentence are forms of though. So provided that doesn't take commas, it just doesn't. And so it's either going to be A or it's going to be D, A or D. And if you think about the A and D choice, then it says to wash at least it 3 times, which sounds really weird, or to wash it in at least 160 degrees scalding water. I think it was the at least thing, which was pulling people away. And they were also thinking about a comma. But it's D for number 4. So be careful with the provided that. Number 5, I'm going to sneeze. I can just feel it. God bless me. With some scissors, Jenna precariously tried to give herself the fashionable bob cut with bangs that she saw in her older sister's Cosmo Girl magazine. Remember, a short prep phrase at the beginning of the sentence does not take commas unless it's unclear where that prep phrase ends. And so I just say with some scissors, but no comma. So that eliminates the B and D choice. And then the reason I don't choose C is I've split that infinitive to precariously give. It's got to be the A choice. Number 6, until today, I always assumed that ketchup with a K was just a lesser quality variation of ketchup or catsup that my mom bought at the discount grocery store. All right. Once again, until today is a short prep phrase, no commas. It's got to be either A or C. And then I never put a comma near the word that. It's just going into a noun clause. So A is my choice. Let's take a look at our new questions that we have. So number 1 reads, looking back, Alani felt bad that she told Owen that he didn't play very good during the basketball game, now that she realizes he had a relapse of his leprosy. Well, we have a couple things here. We have felt bad, and we also have didn't play very good. And you'll notice that's the only thing that's really changing in these answers down here. Well, you can feel bad, but you can't feel badly. I remember you can feel sorry, but you don't feel sorrily. So we'd say felt bad. It's going to be A or C. And remember, you play something well. It's an adverb. You don't play good, but you play well. It has nothing to do with health. It's just an adverb. It's got to be C. Number two, the few locals who had a sense of ethics about animal rights staged a protest at the Solenco Fair, where the opening night's festivities included a monkey rodeo and kangaroo boxing. Well, I definitely want to put a comma after Solenco Fair. It's very specific, so therefore this adjective clause in the back half isn't necessary to the sentence. So I like the commas. That still means A, B, and C. I also noticed that it says the few locals, and I know it says the few locals, but it's kind of like which few locals are you talking about? Well, the few locals who had a sense of ethics, and so I want to go with no commas in this one at all between that adjective clause. I still want to keep one after Solenco Fair, but I don't want to go with the C choice. I want to go with the B choice. Number three, trying to be encouraging. Her dad told Hannah not to stress, but to think positive about this Saturday morning when she'll take once again, when she'll take once again, try, here's something weird there, when she'll try once again to score at least a 4-digit number on the SAT. Sorry about that, Hannah. Well, you can't think positive, but you can think positively. It's an adverb, so it's got to be either C or D. And Saturday morning is very specific, so therefore the comma makes sense. It's Saturday morning. Number four, judging the. I'm sorry, just to clarify, I feel like I'm going too fast. Just to clarify, number four, this is an adjective clause, and then so it's renaming or describing Saturday morning, and Saturday morning is already a very specific noun, so therefore it gets the comma. All right, don't want to cruise through something too quickly. Number five, judging for Jeffrey. Four, judging the final two contestants' pumpkin carvings, Mr. Cantrell said that he appreciated Woodney's President Trump pumpkin, but liked Cooper's Starry Night pumpkin most. Well, you can see this is the difference between a more and a most. And if there's only two, if he's judging the final two, then he likes one more than the other. So it's got to be the word more. So B or D. And there's no reason to put a comma after pumpkin. It's not a compound sentence. So therefore, B would be correct. Number five, soaking in a vinegary brine. Melanie hoped for her cucumbers to turn into prize winning pickles. That's great if Melanie's sitting in brine, but Melanie, you're not sitting in brine, love. And so when it says soaking in a vinegary brine, we have to have cucumbers to be the subject. So it can't be A and it can't be B. It's got to be C. If you chose D, you're kind of reversing science by having the pickles turning into cucumbers. That's weird. Number six, Mr. Doherty's yoga videos on YouTube have gathered a large following of Willow Valley residents. And now his own clothing line, which Mr. Doherty markets as Dough Man Yoga Gear, has gone viral. Well, it's definitely a compound sentence. So I have a comma after residents. So I can see that's pretty common in B, C, and D, that comma after residents, because there's a brand new sentence which says his clothing line has gone viral. But between the clothing line has gone viral, I've interrupted it with the word which. And remember, the word which almost always is pretty safe to put a comma around them. So I'm going to put a comma after clothesline and comma after gear. So D is a great choice. 7, Chick-fil-A claims that its chicken is just as good, if not better, than Popeyes. Remember, we have to have the word as twice. It's just as good as. It's got to be C or D. And it's not Popeyes, but its chicken is just as good as Popeye's chicken. So it's got to be apostrophe because you're implying the word chicken. Number 8, last one. Mrs. White, who we assumed had a heart, piled on the workload for her AP bio classes and laughed at a student who cried in class. Well, a student is pretty general. So we'd say a student who cried in class. And so I want to not put any commas between student and who. So I like that. The tendency is for everyone to choose B. I think it's going to be the word whom. Because when we think about what we did with who versus whom, we'd say, well, here's assumed. It already has a subject we. So therefore, the word whom must be sitting here. But I want to kind of highlight something here if I can. I want you to focus on how what's happening is we're saying who actually is part of this verb here. We're saying we assumed what? We assumed who had a heart. Had needs a subject. So we is the subject of assumed and who is the subject of had. And that's why I have to choose A. It has to be the word who, and there's no comma after student. That was really tricky. All right, I'm going to pause my video and restart it and take a look at part 3 and also our diagrams.